Bonjour tout le monde. Today we're going to have another look at the past tense in French, and specifically we're going to look at the perfect tense. The perfect tense is used to say what happened in the past. For example, in English we might say I played, I ate, we watched. And the verb has two parts. We use the auxiliary, which is avoir, to have, in the present tense, and the past participle, which for regular ER verbs means we take the ER off the end of the infinitive and add an E with an accent. I've exaggerated the accent because it's important. To use the verb successfully, you've got to have these two parts. You've got to have your auxiliary followed by your past participle. The auxiliary is the bit that changes depending on who you're talking about, doing an action in the past, but the past participle remains the same. So here is avoir, which is conjugated across the various people we might talk about. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a. On a and nous avons can both mean we have. Vous avez, that's you plural or polite. Ils ont, elles ont. They have masculine and they have feminine. And then we simply follow that with the past participle, and you can see here are all the past participles ending in E with an accent. You have already learnt that some verbs do not take avoir as the auxiliary, but they take être, to be. And you don't need to know them all, but you do need to know these ones. Je suis allé, I went. Nous sommes allés, we went. Je suis resté, I stayed. Nous sommes restés, we stayed. You can see that here the auxiliary is from être. As with all our French speaking and writing, we use time phrases to signal what tense we're in, and also it's a useful reminder to stay in that particular tense. So here we've got hier, la semaine dernière, le week-end dernier. Yesterday, last week, last weekend. Le matin, in the morning. Le midi, at lunchtime. L'après-midi, in the afternoon. I've also added on a couple of important verbs that you're going to need. Il y avait, which is the past tense of il y a. So it can mean there was or there were. And c'était, which is the past tense of say, it was. Now, just like in English, there are lots of irregular verbs in French. And today we are going to focus specifically on those. Once again, you don't need to know them all, but it's a good idea to be able to recognise them if they crop up in a listening or a reading exam. So we're going to look at a few that would be useful. And it would be a good idea, whilst we work through this video, that you have a think about which ones you might want to use that you think are a good idea. So I've slightly rejigged the sheet here. So I've got my auxiliary avoir across the top. And underneath, I've included the past participles that would be useful, but are irregular, okay? There are some patterns, but there aren't enough useful patterns to remember these by, so you just have to learn them, okay? But again, as I said, look at the ones that you think are going to be useful and make sure you use them in your practice so that you can remember them in future. Okay, so here we've got our infinitives, which we recognise: boire, to drink, lire, to read, for example. Let's have a look at the past participle. Bu. Lire becomes lu. Voir becomes vu, etc. Okay, these are all in your booklet, so have a look at those. So what we would do is we would take an auxiliary up here and use a past participle. So j'ai bu would mean I drank. Nous avons bu, we drank. So it still follows the same rules, they just happen to be irregular past participles. Because this is the sheet I'm going to refer to when we work through the exercises, I have repeated the verbs that we find useful, that take être as the auxiliary. So there's je suis allé, je suis resté, etc. And underneath I have repeated the time phrases. Okay, so I'm going to put this to one side, but I'm going to keep it to refer to. So let's have a look at the first exercise. Okay, we're simply going to translate the following sentences. There will be a mixture of regular and irregular past tenses, but I'm going to look at the sentence first and I'm going to see if I can spot my past tense before I begin. Hier, j'ai regardé un film d'action au cinéma et nous avons mangé du popcorn. It's very easy to spot the past tenses because we look for our past participle. It's preceded by the auxiliary. So there's one past tense, and here's our other because I can see manger. Hier is our time phrase. Remember, you can check back to this. Where is it? There you go. Hier, yesterday. Right. Let's have a go at this one. Yesterday, j'ai regardé, I watched. As I said, we could say I have watched or I watched, and this is the one I'm going to use here. I watched an action film. Just tweaking the word order. I watched an action film at the cinema. And we ate popcorn. Okay, so these ones are regular ER verbs in the past tense. So that one's quite straightforward. Let's have a look at the second one. Le week-end dernier, je suis allé au parc et j'ai couru 5 kilomètres. Time phrase. Here is our past tense. There's the past participle. Je suis allé. This is one of the ones that take être. Au parc et j'ai couru 5 kilomètres. Now, I recognise my auxiliary, but here we've got an irregular past participle. So I'm going to look back at my sheet that's going to help me. There's couru. It comes from the verb courir, to run. Okay. Le week-end dernier, last weekend. Je suis allé, remember? Je suis allé, I went. I ran 5 kilometers. Okay? So we just have to be a little bit more aware of what is going on when we come across the past participle. Okay, it will always follow the auxiliary, just take a little bit more care. So if you think you're happy to continue translating these sentences, off you go. Use the sheet to refer to find your irregular past participle, and I'm going to carry on doing these. Come back and join me to correct them. So number 3, le matin, time phrase, in the morning. We're straight in with an irregular past tense. Elle a lu un livre. So there's our auxiliary, there's the past participle. Elle a lu un livre, et l'après-midi, elle a fait les devoirs. Okay, let's double check. There's lu, from to read, and there's fait, faire, to make or do. Right. Après-midi, let's double check. There it is, in the afternoon. So I have successfully translated elle a lu, she read, and elle a fait, she did. Okay, yesterday at school, we're not talking about je or elle anymore, we're talking about mon frère. My brother a appris. That is our irregular past tense. Let's have a look. There it is, apprendre, to learn. So we're putting to learn into the past tense. Yesterday at school. J'ai toujours voulu. Okay, we've put toujours in there, which you may remember means always. But here we've got an irregular past participle, so I'm going to go back to my sheet. Voulu, to want. Okay. The translation will be slightly different. I have always, because I've got to deal with my toujours. I have always wanted. visit. There you go. I have always wanted to go. J'ai toujours voulu. I have always wanted to go to Paris to visit the Eiffel Tower. Good. I hope you're noticing that we're doing a lot of time phrases at the beginning of these sentences. Yesterday. Oh, right. Okay. So now I'm going to have to be careful because I'm going into French. Yesterday. Hier. I drank. Seen this already. Boire, to drink. I've got to use bu. So, auxiliary first. This is my other past tense, said. Let's have a look and check that it's on the sheet. There we go. Dit. To say. From dire to say gives us dit. Another irregular. Ma mère. I've got to use the correct bit of avoir, so I'm going to have to go back to my sheet, okay? So because we talk about my mother, I'm going to use this bit of avoir. Ma mère a dit. It was bad for my health. Got to use the past of say, so I'm going to go c'était mauvais pour la santé. We know this phrase very well, okay? So let's have a look. Hier j'ai bu. There's the irregular past tense. Hier j'ai bu de la limonade, mais ma mère, second past tense, a dit que c'était, it was mauvais pour la santé. Good. Let's try this last one. Last week. I played. Jouer is nice and regular, so I simply do what I'm used to doing. J'ai joué au tennis. And afterwards, I drank lots of water. Okay, we used I drank here, okay? So I'm just going to copy that carefully. Et après, j'ai bu. Lots of water, beaucoup d'eau. Okay, right. So let's have a look at another exercise. This time, I have put the infinitive in brackets here. So we've got to fill this gap with the correct past participle. I have also asked you to translate it. If you feel happy starting this now, you can pause the video and have a go. Remember to keep referring to this sheet. I'm going to start working through this sentence by sentence, always checking on the sheet that I've got to hand. Okay. Le week-end dernier, another time phrase. There's my auxiliary. Here's my irregular verb. So I'm going to look here. There's prendre, to take, which means pris is my past participle. Okay, my sister took. Okay, here's the verb voir. There's my auxiliary, so I'm going to check if voir is on this list. There it is, to see, past participle, vu. Okay, j'ai vu. Got to translate is c'était. Do you remember what it is? It's the past tense of say. So it's not it is, it was great. Here's our past tense. This is a regular one, okay, ending in E accent, so that's fine, but further down here, I've got dire again, okay? So let's double check. There's dire, to say, past participle is dit. Again, c'était, it was. Trop cher, too expensive. Time phrase. We've got our irregular verb in brackets. Let's have a look at recevoir. There it is, to receive. Past participle, reçu. I've got to remember to put the cedilla, the little squiggle under my C as well. Okay, reçu. Okay, I received un cadeau, a present for my birthday. And the last one. Hier au collège, j'ai courir. I think we've had this one before, but I am still going to check. There's courir, to run, so the past participle is ran. Hier au collège, j'ai couru en cours de PS. Yesterday at school. Okay, there you go, yesterday. I ran in the PE lesson. Right, so there you are. We've had some basic practice of some of these irregulars. As I said, this sheet gives you an idea of how they work. You can see that once you get the hang of which ones are irregular, it's quite straightforward. You just follow the previous pattern. And good luck. Thank you.